When last we left our intrepid adventurers, in the aftermath of the Sahaugan attack, Skala is politely asked to move out of the manor in order to make room for wounded soldiers. It comes to light that not all of the soldiers that the paladins Marcus, Akai, and Magnus saw strewn about the manor were slain. Some will recover, but the recovery will take time. Novit Chalain asks to speak with Morgan. She tells Morgan that she wishes to withdraw her name from consideration as a priestess of Chaldasea. She says that she's just seen too much killing and death. Despite Morgan's urgings, Chalain says that her mind is made up, and when possible, she would like to go home. That night, Morgan is visited by the evil Jacanis Distaria in a dream. The Jacanis tells Morgan that all she has to do is get the voice of Chaldasea, the girl Mary, and then the Chaldites will have to follow her orders. In light of her impending victory, since she has the voice of Chaldasea right now, Distaria offers Morgan one chance to join her as a worshipper. The Jacanis tells Morgan that all she has to do is worship her instead of Chaldasea. Morgan refuses the offer, and the dream ends. The next day, Aaron Vel comes calling to the party. He says that Jacana Jun needs to talk to them. The Jacana tells Morgan that he would like to have the Temple of Chaldasea moved further from the coast. He mentions that part of the hill that the manor sits on is vacant and would make a fine site for a bigger temple. He also lets slip that a bigger temple could probably be used to train new paladins. Later in the evening, Akai's scouts return. The sharks weren't much in for small talk this time, and besides telling Akai that there's a school of tuna waiting to be eaten, the only news they have is that Mary has been moved to a boat that is sailing to the north. Obviously, this is a bad thing, since the Dark City Deserata is in the north. Skala uses her scrying ability and sees that Mary is sealed in a metal cage. There's some sort of magic obscuring the view, though. Morgan uses ascending to comfort Mary, reminding her that the lady is with her and to be brave. After some debate, Skala suggests that maybe if she uses more power, she can teleport into the cage where Mary is, grab her, and be back. Skala concentrates hard, uses all of the power she can, and appears inside the cage. When she goes to leave, she realizes it's warded, and now she cannot get out. A voice greets her, saying that they are happy to meet the famous Skala of the Three Souls. Suddenly, a hand reaches through the cage, and her foot is pulled through the bars. There's a searing pain that cuts through her leg. There's a pulling, and her foot is removed from her ankle. Skala passes out. Back in Sylvia's Rest, the party is somewhat dismayed by the disappearance of Skala and that she hasn't returned. Some scrying confirms that she is trapped, and the party watches in horror as Mary pulls Skala away from the side of the cage, and Skala is missing her foot. The party debates what to do. They obviously need a ship in order to try to catch up to the kidnappers. They go and talk to Jacana Jun, who just happens to be in the village. They tell him of the disappearance of Skala, and Jun seems disturbed by the news and deeply troubled. He says that he will see what he can do to get them some help. As the afternoon dawns, there comes a horrible storm that overtakes Sylvia's Rest. The temple is whipped by the wind and the rain. In the middle of the storm, there is a knock at the door. When the party opens it, they see two Mantuthian warriors, along with the little mother of the local Mantuthian village. They want to talk to Akai alone. The Miapida, little mother, she says that she has heard of the party's problem and is willing to help, but for a price. She instructs Akai to open her mouth, and as Akai does so, the Miapida moves to reach inside with her hand. Akai turns away and says she won't go through with whatever the Miapida is going to do. Despite a heated discussion by the rest of the party, they've reached an impasse. The Miapida and her warriors leave. The next morning, Jekena Jun shows up. He goes and talks to one of the ship's captains, and although upset, the captain of the ship orders his crew to stop unloading grain and make ready to sail. Once on the ship, the party begins to stow their gear while the captain takes his ship out of port. Out on the breakwater, the party sees the Miapida and a couple of warriors sitting enjoying the sun. Trying to broker a last-minute deal, Morgan gets one of the crew to row her and Akai out to see the little mother. Additional posturing from both Akai and the Miapida goes on, but in the end, Akai lets the girl put her hand in her mouth. Akai feels a sharp pain, and the Miapida removes her hand from Akai's mouth, holding a tooth. The party gets their luggage from the ship, and the Miapida begins casting a spell. The sky goes dark, and a gale blows in from the land. There is blackness, and when the light comes back on, the party finds itself on the northern continent. Scala wakes up to see the horror that has been done to her. A red symbol of chaos pulsates on the stump where her foot used to be. Scala calls on the voice to remove the curtains around the cage. The voice demurs and says that she is evil and doesn't have to do anything based on laws or rules. Moving the curtain, Scala sees the woman that was outside Lament Fortress. She introduces herself as Tonda Avan. Scala says that she's done some research on her, and she mentions that Tonda is so reviled in Mantuthian culture that whenever her name is spoken, the speaker spits between their fingers as a curse upon the name. Meanwhile, the party begins heading inland. They start to run parallel to the Sylvian Canal, which is what they followed to get to Lament originally from Stephen's Hold. Kepperdine makes mention that there has been some attempts to unblock the canal. He says that tells him that the Northern Deseratans intend to be here for a long time. There's a sound of horses on the towpath. The party hides in the bushes. They see a couple of horsemen come down the verge. To no one's surprise, the horsemen are from Northern Deserata. Once they're gone, Akai volunteers to go forward and see what's coming down the trail. Locked in the cold iron cage, Scala and Mary are being taunted by Tonda Avan again. Avan arranges to have dinner scraps poured through the cage, as well as some flea-infested scraps for bedding. She tells Scala that if she doesn't behave, she'll have the entire cage dropped in the canal and have done with them. When no one is watching, Scala works on the lock of the cage. It's slow work. Akai has scouted further ahead. She reports back what she's seen, a column of troops marching down the towpath along with a couple of wagons. It seems curious that a group is going away from the fighting. Kepperdine surmises that the wagons might hold Scala and Mary. Akai did a quick count and figures that there's about a dozen infantry as well as some cavalrymen. The unit appears to be regular Northern Deserata soldiers. After discussing what to do, the party sees and hears more wolf scouts looking for them. Thinking that they've been spotted, the party heads away from the canal in order to throw off pursuit. They hear the sounds of wolves again, and they decide that they're being tracked. It seems that whenever they start to get close to the caravan, the wolves get closer, forcing them away. The party can hear the calls of troops tracking them. They head across open ground. They see horsemen riding towards them. And running ahead of the horsemen, a pack of wolves. Akai takes cover in the trees, while Morgan, Marcus, Keberdane, Seraph, and Magnus prepare to receive the charge. Morgan softens the cavalry by calling down the lady's power on a couple of the troops, and Marcus steps forward to receive the brunt of the charge. Almost as soon as the wolves hit, the party hear the sound of infantry behind them. They see a dozen or so troops emerging from the woods about 100 yards down the road behind the party. The infantry begins unlimbering a couple of bolt throwers. Marcus, Akai, and Seraph take on the wolves, while one of the cavalrymen try to ride Marcus down. Morgan decides to use the lady's power on the bolt throwers, destroying them, which demoralizes the supporting infantry. The regular soldiers advance, but at a much slower rate. The cavalry's morale breaks. The Altmen run off into the woods. Suddenly, the party doesn't have anyone left to fight, so they decide to pursue the wagons that were heading north. The caravan now consists of slow-moving wagons, several teamsters, and a few guards equipped with crossbows. Tonda Ivan supervises the unloading of the metal cage from the wagon. Scala, time and time again, tries to use magic to attack the lock, but it doesn't seem to work. A rider comes down the path and tells Tonda Ivan about the route of the soldiers. She swears and redoubles her efforts to get the cage next to the canal. Scala pleads with Tonda Ivan to at least let Mary go, but Tonda Ivan laughs, saying that Mary is the more important of the two of them. The cage is put in place on the edge of the canal and pushed towards the water. One shove, two shoves, and a third shove, and the cage topples into the canal, sinking right down to the bottom, with Scala using all of the magic she has to attempt to break the lock. The party is moving as fast as they can. They find a couple of abandoned wagons and what's left of a camp. Seraph sees a cage at the bottom of the canal. Despite their best efforts, when they pull it out of the water, they find the drowned bodies of Scala and Mary. Keberdane asks Morgan what she can do. Can she use the power of the lady to bring them back to life? Morgan shakes her head and says that the lady's power is limited because of her struggle with Dystaria. So they need to find a temple of Chaldasea soon. But time is short. There is a window of time after which they cannot be brought back to life. Marcus steps forward and says that he knows of a temple and it's close. Marcus then points to the north. He says there's a temple in Stephen's Hold, not more than 3 days away. Next time, we find out what kind of reception the party will get when they return to Stephen's Hold. And will Morgan give Hallister the answer he wants on the subject of marriage to her daughter Australia?